Hi everybody, hope you're doing well. Welcome to Papagei English, and this is our third session. In this session, we're going to talk about locating information questions. Now, before starting the course, I would appreciate if you subscribe to my channel on YouTube. If you like my videos, like them and leave your comments. All of them will help me to improve the quality of my courses. Now, let's start our today's session. Locating information questions or detailed questions. These questions are often in the form of which paragraph contains the following information, or choosing two correct answers from around 5 possible choices. They are similar to heading questions, but in this kind of questions, there is no topic sentence, and you have to search the whole paragraph, like the challenge in heading questions we discussed in the previous session. The steps for answering these questions are very similar to the heading questions. Number 1, look at the title. We need you to look at the title to know what the passage is about. Is it about, for example, sport? Is it about history? Is it about space exploration, music, business, and etc.? Okay, so that's important in order to have a general idea of the passage. Number 2, circle the signals and underline their narrower in case it is necessary. Number 3, scan and find the signals and reroute them carefully. It's better to approach these questions based on other questions which we will discuss at the end of the course. When you approach a reading passage in the IELTS reading, there are usually around 2 or 3 sets of questions, and it's important to choose which sets of questions to answer first and then go to the first ones. 2 questions, for example, and detailed questions should be decided based on the other questions, okay? That's very important, and it can save you a lot of time. But in these sessions, we're going to just focus on these kinds of questions, okay? In final sessions, we will do a full practice test, and at that session, I will explain you how to act in different situations. Now, let's continue. This is an example, and I chose it from reading passage 3 on a purpose in order to have a difficult example and show you that even you can handle the most difficult and complex questions in your IELTS reading session. Now, the first thing you need to do is just look at the title, okay? Preface to How the Other Half Thinks. Adventures in Mathematical Reasoning. Okay, it is about something about mathematics and thinking. Okay, now that's enough. Now let's start and choose our signals. Now let me turn on my highlighter and choose our signals or keywords. And also this is important to notice. Sometimes you have in B. You may use any letter more than once. It's very important to notice. It means that in one paragraph, we have 2 of these options. Okay? Now, let's choose our keywords. A reference to books that assume a lack of mathematical knowledge. Reference is important, and also a lack of mathematical knowledge. These questions are not in order. And as a result, we have to read all of them and choose all of our signals. And whenever we think that we need, just refer back to our signals and review them. Okay? Now, let's go to the next one. The way in which this is a not typical book about mathematics. The way in which this is not a not typical book about mathematics. Personal examples of being helped by mathematics. Personal examples. As I told you, plural nouns are very important, and I'm sure that there is one paragraph in which we're gonna have some examples, okay? Some people, and in different ways, some people helped by mathematics. Examples of people who each had abilities that seemed incompatible. Again, we have a plural noun and examples of people who had abilities that seemed incompatible. Mention of different focuses of books about mathematics, different focuses of books. Again, books are plural, and different focuses are a plural noun as well. So that's important to be careful about plural nouns, because most times they are our keywords in finding the relevant section of the reading questions. a contrast between reading this book and reading other kinds of publication, and we're going to look for a contrast between this book and other kinds of application. A claim that the whole of the book is accessible to everybody. A claim. This is a claim, and whole of the book is accessible to everybody. A reference to different categories of intended readers of this book. A reference different categories of intended readers of this book. Okay, now we read our questions from 27 to 34, and we highlighted our keywords and the signals. Then the first thing we need to do is just start reading the paragraphs. But please be careful that don't read by your lips. You need to just look at them and read by your eyes and skim them, okay? In order to find the relevant part of the text which are very close to our signals, and then read around them carefully in order to answer the questions. Now, let's just start it. Because it's a tutorial session, I have to read it a lot and give you some explanations. Now, let's just start. Occasionally, in some difficult musical compositions, there are beautiful but easy parts. Parts simple, a beginner could play them. So, it is with mathematics as well. There are some discoveries in advanced mathematics that do not depend on specialized knowledge, okay? There are some advances on mathematics that do not depend on specialized knowledge, not even on algebra, geometry, and trigonometry. Instead, they involve at most a little arithmetic, such as the sum of two odd numbers is even, and common sense. Each of the 8 chapters in this book illustrates this phenomenon. Anyone can understand every step in the reasoning. Now, as you see, from start of the paragraph until reasoning, there is nothing to do with our keywords. But if you just read this paragraph in around 5 or 8 seconds or 10 seconds, it will give you an insight of the passage, okay? Now, let's just start. Let's continue reading this paragraph. The thinking in each chapter uses at the most only elementary arithmetic, okay? And sometimes not even that. Thus, all readers will have the chance to participate in a mathematical experience. That's a little bit suspicious for me. Now, I'm gonna go back to my options. I claim that the whole of the book is accessible to everybody. Okay. Accessible to everybody, and I have, thus all readers will have the chance to participate in a mathematical experience, to appreciate the beauty of mathematics, and to become familiar with its logical yet intuitive style of scheme. Now that's it. The readers will have the chance to participate in a mathematical experience, and all this. Specifically all. This is a paraphrase. This can be paraphrased with everybody. So this is A. 33. Now let's go on to the next one. Paragraph B. One of my purposes in writing this book is to give readers who haven't had the opportunity to see and enjoy real mathematics the chance to appreciate the mathematical way of thinking. I want to reveal not only some of the fascinating discoveries, but more importantly, the reasoning behind them. Okay? If you again forget your clues, just go back to them and just look at them. In that respect, this book differs from most books on mathematics written for the general public. Okay? That in this book differs from most books on mathematics written for the general public. This is a comparison between this book and other books. And as far as I remember, we had something about, this is a not typical book about mathematics. So, paragraph B is answer for question number 28. Now let's continue. Some present the lives of colorful mathematics. Okay. Some present lives of colorful mathematics. Others describe important applications of mathematics. Again, we have another viewpoint and another kind of books. Yet others go into mathematical procedures, but assume that reader is adept in using algebra. As I told you, when we have plural nouns and different facts or different kinds of scenes in paragraphs. For example, scientists have different viewpoints about a topic. Books have different viewpoints or descriptions about different scenes. You're going to be a little bit suspicious about these kinds of scenes. Okay, now let's go back to our questions. Reference to different categories of intended readers of this book. No, it has nothing to do with intended readers. The contrast between reading this book and reading, no, it is again a not contrast between this book and other kinds of publication. Mention of different focuses of books about mathematics. Okay, mention of different focuses of books about mathematics. Okay, that's our answer. 31. Books focused on mathematics based on different things. Let's continue. We finished paragraph B and we're now on paragraph C. I hope this book will help you bridge that notorious gap that separates the two cultures, the humanities and sciences. Or should I say the right brain, intuitive, and the left brain, analytical or numerical. As the chapters will illustrate, mathematics is not restricted to the analytical and numerical. Intuition plays a significant role. The alleged gap can be narrowed or completely overcome by anyone, in part because each of us is far from using the full capacity of either side of the brain. Okay, again, I highlight that you just need to read these paragraphs by your eyes and just skim them, and do not read these paragraphs intensively. Okay, now let's continue. To illustrate our human potential, I cite a structural engineer who is an artist, a structural engineer who is an artist, an electrical engineer who is an opera singer who published mathematical research, and a mathematician who publishes short stories. Again, we have the same scenario that we had in paragraph B. Okay, be suspicious about these things. Now let's go back to the examples. Plurals are important always and always, keeping that in your mind. Examples of people who each had abilities that seemed incompatible. Okay, their abilities are incompatible. Some of them are mathematicians, but they are good at singing. Some of them are, for example, doctors and are good at judging. Okay, people based on their field of study have different abilities. So this is our answer for paragraph C. Now let's go to the paragraph D. Other scientists have written books to explain their fields to non-scientists, but have necessarily had to omit the mathematics. Also, it provides the foundation of their series. But have necessarily had to omit the mathematics. Also, it provides the foundation of their series. Omit plays a key role in this paragraph. It was similar to one of my keywords, a lack of mathematical knowledge, and also a reference to book. And that's very important to be able to paraphrase the keywords that you have chosen. Okay, I remembered that I had a lack of mathematical knowledge, and in this paragraph, it is a reference to a book that omit the mathematics. Also provides the foundation of their series. And we don't need to read the rest of the paragraph. Just check it with your eyes a few seconds in order to make sure that that's the correct paragraph, and then you can answer the questions. Paragraph B is a reference to a book that assumes a lack of mathematical knowledge. Now let's continue. Still, the non-mathematical reader can go far in understanding mathematical reasoning. This book presents the details that illustrate the mathematical style of thinking, which involves sustained step-by-step analysis, experiments, and insights. You will turn these pages much more slowly than when reading a novel or a newspaper. Okay? It may help to have a pencil and paper ready to check claims and carry out experiments. It says that you will turn these pages much more slowly than when reading a novel or a newspaper, and it's a comparison between reading a novel or newspaper and this mathematical book. I remember that we had a comparison in our keywords, okay? Now, a contrast between reading this book and reading other kinds of publication. Now, that's the correct answer. As I said, the words like reference, examples, contrasts are important. And in these sets of questions, we have only one contrast. So it was easy for me to find the answer. And if you are aware of these facts and tips, you would be able to answer the questions easily as well. Now, 32 is paragraph E. Let me write it here and go on to the next one. As I wrote, I kept in mind two types of readers. Those enjoyed mathematics until they were turned off by unpleasant episode, usually around 5th grade, and mathematics aficionados who will find much that is new throughout the book. Now that's it. It's for different types of readers. We had something as a reference to different categories of intended readers of this book. Okay. 34, we find the answer, and it's paragraph F. Now let's write here paragraph F, and the only remaining option is 29, personal examples of being helped by mathematics. In this case, you're just gonna check the answer in just a few seconds and answer the questions directly, okay? As a physician wrote, the discipline of analytical thought process in mathematics prepared me extremely well for medical school. A lawyer made the same point. Okay, so it's by different people, and you can just write G personal examples of being helped by mathematics. Now, that's the end of these questions. As you see, in these questions, we need to search for details in different paragraphs. These questions are rather difficult questions in the IELTS reading section, but if your general English is good enough and you know some tips that I discussed about them, that wouldn't be a daunting task for you to do these kinds of scheming or scanning skills and reading the paragraphs and answering the questions. You can just master these kinds of questions by practicing a lot. Practice at home, calculate your score, and analyze your abilities to see whether you are able to answer these kinds of questions or not. Now, these are the answers as well. Now, let's go to the next slide. Okay, I believe in a power of colors and beautiful slides. Now, let's take a break. If you want to look good in front of thousands, you have to outwork thousands in front of nobody. Now, let's continue our session. We have another type of locating information questions that I call them two questions. These kinds of questions are another form of locating information questions that could be appeared in different forms. The best strategy to adopt is to approach these questions based on the other questions. The steps for answering are the same as the previous questions. These questions are very similar to which paragraphs contain the following information, but the good strategy to adopt for answering these questions is to act based on the other questions. Now I have the previous passage that we answered hidden questions for civilization of Eastern Island, and I'm going to show in these slides that you can have an idea of what the passage is about after answering some type of the questions, and when it comes to the second type of the questions, it would be easy for you to answer the questions because you know the different sections of the reading passage to look for exactly what you're looking for. Now, let's go back to the previous slide and let me turn on my pen. Choose two letters A to E. Write the correct letters in boxes 25 and 26 on your answer sheet. On what points Hound and Lippo disagree with Diamond? Okay, you can find the Hound and Lippo and Diamond in the passage just by scanning because they are the name of the scientists and it's easy to find them. Okay, now let's select our keywords. The period when the Moai were created. It's about the period how the Moai were transported. The second option is about their transportation, the impact of Rapuni, the impact of the Moai on Rapuni society. It's about their impact on society and how Moai were carved and the origins of people who made the Moai. Now let's go to the next slide and find the Diamond and two other scientists. Okay, US scientist George Diamond believes that we have diamonds here, diamonds, and he thinks he is a reference to diamond. And in the third paragraph D, we have Terry Hunt of University of Hawaii and Carl Lippo of California State University. Now let's go on to our next slide, Hunt and Lippo. And again, we have Hunt and Lippo's viewpoint and Hunt and Lippo's viewpoint. Because we have answered the hidden questions, we have an idea of where to look for our answers. Now, as far as I remember, okay, US scientist George Diamond believes that the Rapuni people, descendants of Polynesian settlers, wrecked their own environment. Diamond thinks that they destroyed their own environment. Okay, and in the second paragraph, he again states that the Moai statues accelerated the self-destruction. Diamond interprets them as a power displaced by rival chieftains. Okay, but in paragraph D, archaeologists Terry Hunt and Carl Lippo believe the islanders themselves weren't to blame. Okay, and the Moai certainly weren't, and even the Moai certainly weren't. Archaeological excavation indicates that Rapuni went into heroic efforts to protect the resources of their wind-lashed infertile fields. Now, that's the first point. They disagree with each other. Okay, now just find the impact of Moai on Rapuni society. Now, this is one of our answers. Now, let's go on to the second one. Again, Diamond thinks we have only in paragraph B and paragraph C about Diamond. So it would be wise to first look at the viewpoints of Diamond and then go for other two scientists. Diamond thinks they laid the Moai on wooden sledges, hauled over log rails, but that required both a lot of wood and a lot of people. It's about their transportation. To feed the people, even more land had to be cleared. Okay, that's enough. We don't have anything to look for in this paragraph. Let's go and look for the viewpoints of Carl Lippo and Hunt of University of Hawaii. Okay, Hunt and Lippo contended that Moai building was an activity that helped keep the peace between islanders. They also believed that this is about their transportation. Moving Moai required few people and no wood because they were walked outright. That issue, Hunt and Lippo say, archaeological evidence backs up Rapuni folklore. Okay, this is the point about their transportation. Now, as you see, Diamond believes that they laid the Moai on wooden sledges hauled over log rails, but that required both a lot of wood and a lot of people. But contrary to the Diamond viewpoint, Hunt and Lippo believe that they also believe that moving the Moai required few people and no wood. Okay, so that's the other point. We find they disagree with each other. How the Moai were transported. And because we have read these paragraphs in our previous session, we know that it has nothing to do with how they were carved and even the origins of the people or the period when the Moai were created. Okay, I just want to highlight in this example that when you answer some of the questions and read some parts of the text, then answering the other questions would be easy based on the different sets of the questions that you would have in that specified passage. Now, let's go to our second example. Again, this is another true question. Now, let's just read the instructions. Choose two letters, A to E. Write the correct letters in boxes 19 and 20 on your answer sheet. Which of the following statements are made in the text about Amsterdam bike sharing scheme of 1999? We have 1999 and it's easy to scan and find 1999. Now let's just look at the title of the passage. The growth of bike sharing schemes around the world. It's about bike sharing. Now that's enough for us. We need to look for Amsterdam bike sharing scheme of 1999. Now the first thing we're going to do is just to look, scan and look for the number 1999. Okay, now let's go to the next slide. We have different numbers in the passage, and as you see, finding the numbers is not very tricky and difficult. Okay, now launched in 1999 in Amsterdam. When you find 1991, I always recommend that to start reading from the first of the paragraph, because if you begin to read from the middle of the paragraph, you won't have an idea of what this paragraph is about. But it's going to take a few seconds more than you to start to read from the beginning of the paragraph, but you would have a better understanding of the paragraph. Okay, now let's just review the questions and our options. Which of the two following statements are made about Amsterdam bike sharing in 1999? It is initially opposed by government department. It failed when a partner in the scheme withdrew support. Okay, it aimed to be more successful than the Copenhagen scheme. It was possible by change in people's attitudes. It attracted interest from a range of bike designers. Now let's go to the passage and begin to read. Again, while you're practicing at home, practice to just read by your eyes, because you would have more speed. And because it's a tutorial session, I'm just speaking aloud and giving you some explanations. And now let's start. Even I can't pronounce these words because it doesn't matter. It's a word. Just skip it. Never stopped believing in bike sharing. And in the mid-90s, two Danes asked for his help to set up a system in Copenhagen. The result was the world's first large-scale bike share program. It worked on a deposit. You dropped a coin in the bike, and when you returned it, you got your money back. After setting up the Danish system, Schimmelpenninck decided to try his luck again in the Netherlands, and this time succeeded in arousing the interest of Dutch Ministry of Transport. Okay, that's an important sentence. It says that this time he succeeded in arousing the interest of the Dutch Ministry of Transport. So we had an option that said that it was initially opposed by government department, and that's incorrect. Times had changed, he recalls. People had become more environmentally conscious, and Danish experiment had proved that bike sharing was a real possibility. Okay, again, we have another important sentence. Let's go back to our options. It was possible by changing people's attitudes. Yes, people become more interested in green shoes. Now, that's one of our correct options. That's why I emphasize that it's better to begin and read from the first of the paragraph. If you hadn't read these paragraphs, you would have missed these two options, and then you will be more likely to lose a lot of time in order to find the answers. Now, let's continue. A new white fit plan was launched in 1999 in Amsterdam. However, riding a white bike was no longer free. It cost $1 per trip, and payment was made with a chip card developed by Deutsche Bank. Postbank, Schimmelplank designed conspicuous, sturdy white bikes locked in special racks which could be opened with the chip card. The plan started with 250 bikes distributed over 5 stations. Now let's go to the next paragraph. Okay, who was a system designer for the project, worked alongside Schimmelplank. I remember when we were testing the bike racks, he announced that he had already designed better ones, but of course we had to go through with the ones we had. The system, however, was prone to vandalism and theft. Okay, the system was prone to vandalism and theft. After every weekend, there would always be a couple of bikes missing. Okay, and another viewpoint also says, I really have no idea what people did with them, because they could instantly be recognized as white bikes. But the biggest blow, okay, came when Postbank decided to abolish the chip card. It's important to be able to recognize these two words, abolish and blow. If you don't know the meaning of these two words, you are gonna face challenges finding the correct answer, because it wasn't profitable. The chip card was pivotal. Again, the word pivotal is very important and one of our keys to answer to the system. To continue this project, we would have needed to set up another system, but the business partner had lost interest. So that's okay. Now let's go back to our options. It aimed to be more successful than Copenhagen scheme. It failed when a partner in the scheme withdrew support. Okay. Withdraw could be paraphrased in this option with the with the abolish the chip card and also had lost interest, business partner. Okay. Now that's our answer for this paragraph, and as you see, the 1999 bike sharing scheme has nothing to do with Copenhagen scheme, so we can eliminate this option. And also, it attracted interest from range of bike designers. It has again nothing to do with attracting different designers. Okay. Now let's go to this paragraph. Okay. Now let's go to answer our second set of two questions. Which two of the following statements are made in the text about Amsterdam today? The first thing we're going to do is just to look and search for Amsterdam today. I just want to say another important point, that these kinds of two questions, contrary to which paragraphs contains the following information, are usually in order. In 80% of the cases, or maybe 90% of the cases, the two questions are in order. Okay. Now, as you see, we finished paragraph E and we are in paragraph F. Now, let's just look at the paragraph F. Just look at with your eyes and skim the paragraph. It has nothing to do with paragraph F, but in paragraph G we have in Amsterdam today. Okay, 38% of all trips are made by bike. Okay, now let's go to back and read our options. The majority of residents would like to present all cars entering the city. There's a little likelihood of the city having another bike sharing scheme. More trips in the city are made by bike than by any other form of transport. A bike sharing scheme would benefit residents who use public transport. The city has a reputation as a place that welcomes cyclists. Okay, now let's just continue. 38% of all trips are made by bike, and along with Copenhagen, it is regarded as one of the two most cycle-friendly capitals in the world. Okay, that's enough. Let's go back to our options. The city has a reputation as a place that welcomes cyclists. Okay, that's correct. That's one of our answers. But the majority of residents would like to present all cars now. It has nothing to do with. And more trips in the city are made by bike than by any other form of transport. Be careful about this option that we have around 38% of all trips are made by bike, and we have nothing about the other types of transport. We don't know whether other types of transports are more common than bike sharing or not. Okay, so this option would be incorrect. More trips in the city are made by bike than by any other form of transport. We only know that 38% of the trips are made by bike, so I eliminate this option. Now let's continue. But the city never got another right fits plan. City never got another right fits plan. Okay, let's go back. There is a little likelihood of the city having another bike sharing scheme. No, there is no little likelihood. The city never got. So we eliminate this option as well, and we have two options left for us to decide between them. The majority of residents would like to present all cars entering the city, and a bike sharing scheme would benefit residents to use public transport. Now let's continue. I believe this may be because everybody in Amsterdam already has a bike. Shimel Planning, however, cannot see that this changes Amsterdam's need for a bike sharing scheme. People who travel on the underground don't carry their bikes around, okay, but often they need additional transport to reach their final destination. Okay, people who travel on underground use public transportation, okay, and this sentence is about public transportation. From people until their final destination. Also, he thinks it is strange that a city like Amsterdam does not have a successful bike sharing scheme. Now that's enough. Let's go back to our options, and a bike sharing scheme would benefit residents who use public transport. It would benefit those who use the subway, and that's our correct answers. Now let me turn off my pen as well. That's the end of session 3. I hope it would be useful for you. In this session, we discussed two types of questions. Which paragraphs contains the following information? These questions are very similar to hidden questions, with difference that you need to look for some specific details, and sometimes you would have to read the whole paragraph in order to search some specific details. And we have another types of located information questions called two questions. Two questions are usually in order and a little bit easier to answer, but they appear less in the IELTS reading section. Now, I hope it would be useful for you. If you like this video, please like it, and if you have any comments, please leave your comments and subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.